Greetings, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Citizen Exclusive with your host, Mpoki Thompson. Today's conversation, we're going to talk about agribusiness, but also how to promote the value chain. I'm with the Managing Director of PASS, that is the Private Agriculture Sector Support Trust, Yohane Kaduma. Yohane, welcome to the Citizen Exclusive.
Thank you.
So PASS is marking a major milestone, marking 25 years since it became operational in the country. It was established in the year 2000 when the Tanzanian government and the Danish government decided that there would be such an institution to promote agribusiness in the country. Over the past 25 years, there's been a lot of impact. Now, let's talk about the transformative impact that PASS has had since its establishment up until today. Can you just give us a brief highlight on that?
So the organization was set up at the time by the founders to really tackle the issue of access to finance. There are many issues within the agricultural sector and the value chain in general, the value chains in general, but specifically the access to finance. And even more specific within the access to finance is the availability of collateral. Absolutely. Now, most of the borrowers have and had issues with having the right collateral, the right value of collateral to give to a bank for the loans that they wanted. And that was what PASS was formed to do. Now, over the 25 years, I can dare to say PASS has been very, very successful in doing that. Looking at the amount of loans that we've been able to support, crossing over 2 trillion shillings, going towards 2.5 trillion shillings now. Looking at the number of guarantees, the beneficiaries, which I'm sure we'll talk about a bit later, that we've been able to touch upon, PASS has been extremely successful. The number of financial institutions that we are dealing with has expanded, and I can say the confidence that even the central bank has placed on the value of the PASS guarantee is a very, very significant achievement for PASS to having done that. And I have to add that we have had the consistent support of our founders. The Danish government and the government of Tanzania have consistently been behind PASS, and that has also given us the confidence to perform at the levels that we have, but also the recipients, I can say, of the solutions and the products that we have drawn that confidence from the caliber, I can say, of the founders that are behind us.
Okay, so the PASS is at the intersection. You're almost like an intermediary between those seeking finance, but also the financial institutions who support those who are in the agribusiness. Now, risk mitigation is a big factor because we understand financial institutions tend to be risk averse. Can you tell us how have you been able to gain the confidence, the trust of these financial institutions to inject money into agribusiness over the years?
So over the years, of course, we've built reliable expertise within the organization. The way that we are set up, we conduct our own due diligence on some of the clients, and the banks have been able to draw on that, what we are sharing with them. Some of the conditions that we are able to add or look to add in some of the facilities. Some of the banks are drawing from that and to improve the offers that they have in terms of risk mitigation to the clients that they have. This is what PASS has been able to do. Internally, we're developing the skills of our people in terms of specifically addressing the risks, understanding the risks of the agricultural sector, or lending into the agricultural sector. But with a very specific eye on how to support.
Yes.
Yeah, you can analyze, you can do your analysis from almost a point of view, how do I say no? And it's a big shift to how do I say yes? And we are more of how can we support and make it happen, the credit facility that we have. So the practice, the experience, of course, that we've had across because we are from a point of view where we have a vantage point of not only cutting across the different value chains, crop value chains, but also livestock and fisheries, but also the different financial institutions. So we know the practices of the different banks we're dealing with, what are and therefore able to migrate some of the good things we are seeing from one financial institution into another and another.
Okay, so now the old model of gaining access to finance from any institution used to be contingent to having collateral. Is that still the same model as being used today? If, let's say, I want to get into the agriculture value chain and I want to access a loan from a certain bank, do I have to have a collateral, or what? How has that been transformed over the years today? But still, again, for the bank to gain that confidence that this loan is going to be repaid back.
So the need for collateral is still there. Now that is defined, of course, by the central bank's regulation of the financial institutions that they're regulating. So that need is there. Of course, from a banking point of view per se, they have limits. Based on their capital base, they have limits where they can lend even unsecured. They're allowed by the central bank. They have limits where they can only, they need only to get 100% collateral, and beyond certain values, depending on the capital, need 125% collateral. Now, I can say the financial sector in Tanzania is more on the conservative side still, and therefore the need for collateral is very much there. And that's why PASS is still in business, because that need for collateral is still there. But also, quite critically, even when businesses are growing, you have to understand, and I'm talking about the relevance of PASS, the rate at which you can grow the value of a collateral is not that high. If you're moving, just to give you an example, if you're borrowing 100 million, today you need 125 million worth of collateral. Now, if you want to grow to 200 million, then you need 250 million. So you have to grow your collateral by significant numbers. And most entities are not able to increase the collateral at that value. Absolutely. And that's why PASS has remained quite relevant over the years.
Okay, so now when we talk about finances, we've seen the Tanzanian government, especially through the Bank of Tanzania, working hand in hand with different financial institutions, but also the Ministry of Agriculture. They've been trying to push policy reform to ensure that most farmers in the country are able to gain access to finance. Now, the role that you have played within access to finance is very clear. How about when it comes to helping government shape policy that is conducive to growing the agribusiness?
So the experience that PASS has, and I can say, for example, as an entity, we make sure at least once every half year at least, we have a sit-in with the Bank of Tanzania to share what our experiences are, because the lending policies are primarily driven by the Bank of Tanzania from regulatory point of view. And we share what we are seeing, some of the issues that we believe can improve lending to the agricultural sector, differentiating it from all the other sectors that banks would be dealing with. So we have an opportunity, and we do use it to influence the central bank's policies in that way. But also very active participants. There are bodies that I can say have specialized in this area of policy advocacy, and we're a very active part, and they know because of our knowledge, and therefore they do involve us very, very actively. So, for example, the really critical ones that I can point out at this stage, you have the Annual Agriculture Policy Council that meets once a year. And more recently, we've become part of what is called the Kilimo Roundtable. Now, this is still not very old, but we can see it really gaining in terms of importance in driving policies, especially when you look at the people that around it have been driving the agricultural policy in Tanzania and shaping it from the government point of view, from the private sector point of view for a number of years. So these and others are quite critical tools by which PASS ensures that we do get involved to drive that policy agenda.
Okay, so PASS became an independent institution in the year 2007. However, there are still national priorities or national frameworks as far as promoting agriculture is concerned. Can you share with us a little bit on how involved are you in supporting such initiatives that are undertaken by the government to ensure that the set trajectory or the projections that have been put at the end of the last mile are achieved?
So the government has had a number of these initiatives. I can call them. You had the agricultural sector development plans, the SDP. You had 1, 2, I believe, and 3 as well. PASS was formed under what was a business support program. That's where Danida had come in. That's where PASS was formed. More recently, of course, you have the Vision 2050, but underpinning that from the agriculture side is the Agriculture Master Plan 2050 as well, that was concluded last year. So one in the Vision 2050 as an example, as well as the master plan, PASS was consulted in certain areas in terms of driving the factors, the critical factors that are necessary to take the agricultural industry in Tanzania where we want it to be in 2050 to 2030 being one of the first critical milestones, but also what do we see in terms of solutions and offerings that can be made available to the sector to drive from our core strengths, which we have on the guarantee, on the leasing, etc., but also from the policy point of view, what these are. And therefore, PASS has remained very much closely involved in all those. Now, looking at what are they looking to achieve, what are the critical things? If I can just point out, for example, to the Agriculture Master Plan, the key thing that remains is improving productivity. That from my same piece of land, I can move from X number of tons per annum to 2x number of tons per annum, etc., etc. So in terms of improving productivity, that's the key agenda in all the different plans I can say. So it's about productivity, it's about profitability, to the farmers and the players within that sector. But as they have evolved and certain agenda have become more prominent, you start seeing a lot about climate resilience coming in, given the importance now, the understanding, as it's always been important, but the increased or improved understanding around the effects of climate change and what do we need to do, especially as a country like Tanzania, where we still have vast areas of arable land that we do not use it too quickly, but adopt better practices to make sure that we can still preserve the land that we have. Over the years, again, I say that the focus on youth and women, from the government, we have the BBT and other similar and other programs. So these agenda come in, and you can see them mirroring with what PASS is also doing. Digitalization is another. The Agriculture Master Plan talks about digital solution to the agricultural sector. Mechanization is another one. So if you look at what PASS is offering, we are fitting ourselves into each of those agendas. For youth and women, the size of the guarantee we have coverage is much greater than what we do normally. We'd go up to 80% if it's a business owned by youth or women, whereas otherwise we'll go to 50 to 60% in terms of coverage. From a digitalization point of view, we have a knowledge hub, which is meant to interact from information givers, your meteorological agency, Ministry of Agriculture and others, and the platform where the users of this information, the agripreneurs, your farmers, your other players can come and get that information. On the digitalization side, we're there. We also have the digital credit guarantee that we're offering. And then on mechanization, of course, we have PASS Leasing as a subsidiary of PASS Trust that offers solutions targeted towards mechanization at different levels. So PASS has always and will continue to fit itself very much into the agenda of the government.
Now, you've mentioned about the DIRA 2050, and also you've talked in passing on how you support youth and women. Let's double click a little bit on that, because Tanzania is generally a young nation. We do have a working class that is growing. So out of caution and posterity, how much do you involve youth priorities whenever you plan any national projects as far as agribusiness is concerned? And when you work with the government, how do you ensure that youth are prioritized? Because since your establishment up until today, you've created 2.8, close to 3 million jobs, and a quarter of those have been towards the youth. How much does the youthful population mean to PASS?
So the youth, to quote the cliche, the youth are the future. And what PASS had done, and unfortunately we could not secure, we have not yet secured additional financing. PASS for 5-6 years had an incubation program that we were running. We had the agriculture incubation innovation centers, we call them, in Morogoro, that focused on on horticultural produce and one in Kongwa, which started with goat fattening, the goat fattening value chain. And therefore, these allowed us to understand, it gave us an understanding of how to work with the youth. But also what kind of exposure we do need to give them. Now, some of the things you see with the youth, one of the biggest ones for me, I can say, is around the attitude.
Okay.
The attitude towards agriculture.
Yeah.
And what I can term as the staying power. Because all businesses are challenging, agriculture is specifically so. Especially if you're depending on rain-fed agriculture, then your challenges just multiply. So having that staying power to stay within the sector, to operate within that. And therefore, we have had to adjust, I can say, our product offering to ensure that we can capture the youth, but also women, I should say. And what ways have we done that? If I can start with the past leasing side, including what we call a micro-leasing product, because we know the majority of these will be starting, and therefore they won't have access, or they will unlikely to be in businesses that require significant or substantial investments. And therefore having solutions, I can say, for the below 10 million shillings range in terms of borrowings, even 5 million. And on the past trust side, for the digital credit guarantees, we support loans as low as even 100 and 200,000 shillings. Now, by making sure that we can put our guarantee behind a loan of 200,000 shillings, 500,000 shillings, that increased accessibility of loans to the youth, because we know in that journey they're likely to be on the lower end as they start their journey.
Absolutely. And when you try to ensure that anyone who's interested in investing in agriculture gains the capital from these financial institutions, there needs to be a viable business plan. Now, when you talk to youth, their involvement in agriculture is from an agripreneur perspective. Now, how do you ensure that there is enough viable commercial strategies that are being implemented by youth in order to ensure, if at all they are able to gain capital, it's going to have a required return on investment?
So PASS has got what we call the business development services side to the business that we're doing, which one of the key things is working with entrepreneurs, developing business plans to have something that is viable. It's not for free, but we have that offering within the setup of PASS. So within that, we're able to work with businesses to make sure that what they're presenting is feasible. And once we reach a stage where we are sure that it is feasible from our side, that we would be happy to put our guarantee behind this, then we can take it to 2 or 3 lending institutions. So here's a business we've looked at. We are happy with it. We believe it is feasible. Allow the financial institution to also have their own independent look and view of it.
Okay. So now, beyond financing, there's also the value chain, which here in Tanzania, the journey from the farm to market. There's a lot that is involved in between. Now, can you tell us about the support that PASS is investing in ensuring that the value chain is being promoted in the right perspective? What exact initiatives are being undertaken?
I would say the journey starts even before the farm.
Okay.
And that is seed availability. So what we are looking at, especially in our next 5 years, is what we call developing commodity compacts. Now, we have looked and had a lot of impact across a lot of value chains. But if you were to ask me, which value chain do we believe as PASS have had a transformative impact, I would run away from this chair.
Okay.
We've had a lot of impact on a lot of value chains. But which one has been transformative?
Yes.
That is what we're looking for.
Okay.
And good for us, we are finding partners increasingly with this kind of thinking. So what we are looking at, or what we'll be looking at, and we are about to start with one on soya beans, is exactly what you're saying. Let us look at in this instance, the soybean value chain and analyze it from seed to market. Yeah. Where are these right seeds? What are these right seeds? Can they be made available for the quantities that are required to the farmers? Do they have the land, the know-how to develop their land to get the maximum productivity? What about post-harvest? Storage, etc., etc. And then, do we have maybe a first level of processing? Who are these guys? What's their capacity? The next level, etc., up to the end user. Because we know if you and I, for example, are eating ugali, so the price we pay for that kilogram of unga, of flour that we have bought, has paid for the seeds, has paid for the transport, has paid for the processing, has paid for everything in that value chain. And therefore, understanding that and quantifying that now and breaking it down and say, okay, we have a processor that needs 20,000 tons of a certain product. What does that mean in terms of acreage of production? What does that mean in terms of whether it's mechanization, it's fertilizers, it's seeds? What does that mean for the seed multipliers? And then what is the financing now required for the seed multiplier to give us the X tons of seeds required for the X number of acres to be put into production, for the X number of tons to be out, etc., etc. So this is what we want to increasingly involve ourselves in and work with these value chains and really unlock. And I believe we will achieve that transformative impact in terms of productivity. The one that we're looking at now, very high level figures, just as a pilot for soybean, we're already talking of moving it from around 20,000 tons to almost 50,000 tons, 75,000 tons actually, within the next 3 to 5 years. So that is significant. And this is what we want. Apart from everything, we're not going to stop doing everything else that we are doing, but can we get more and more into these conversations that we're having? There's already one very early stages we've had on wheat as well. I met some other people the other day. They're talking about sunflower, etc., etc. So most of these, from an economic point of view, looking at import substitution. We import a lot of wheat. We import a lot of sunflower oil, but also as a raw material, but semi-processed sunflower oil. But we also import a lot of soybeans and a lot of other things.
Okay. Now you've mentioned about import substitution, but also during your narrative, I got a sense that at the end of the day, if the value addition is done here internally, there might be a cost implication to the final consumer. And at times they tell you it might be a bit cheaper to import than for the entire value chain to be done here locally. Now I want you to just tell us a little bit, give us a bit of insights in terms of that. Is it, on a practical sense, is it cheaper for value addition to be done here than the end consumer is going to pay relatively a lower price than importing? What are the dynamics around that? So
I'll give you wheat as an example, because this is very, very practical. If you go and you talk to Bahresa or your Tanzania, they will tell you that they can get wheat from Ukraine and Russia and Australia and lend it to their factory at probably 30, maybe even 35% cheaper than the wheat they can buy from my relatives in Makete.
Absolutely.
So it's about economies of scale. So all these things that, of course, the government is also pushing on the right seeds, the right farming practices, productivity, etc., are what then would lead to the end consumer paying lower. So this is just a matter of economics. That because the Ukraine or Russia, Australia are producing wheat in millions of tons a year, they have the advantages of economies of scale, and therefore they're able even to, with all the transport costs, get it to a local entity here at a much lower price than what you can get it from, say, Makete. But if you go now to Makete and really price out how much they are spending to generate that 1 ton of wheat, you'd find it's much higher, and therefore they can't afford to sell it lower than that. Otherwise, it won't make sense for them.
So that means that maybe there is a required government intervention in terms of subsidies or even tax breaks for some of these investors within the agriculture value chain.
So subsidies, as you will find out, most governments in the world, if not all, engage in some kind of subsidy or other. So even perhaps, I haven't checked, but perhaps even some of what I've just described on wheat is probably because these guys get an element of subsidy, whether it's fertilizers or whether it's some of the levies, and that's why they're able to deliver it at that level. So the role of the government, of course, subsidies have got their negative side as well. But from what I know, most governments give one subsidy or the other, especially to the farmers and even some of the processors. One, of course, to make sure that they can protect the jobs, making sure that people are employed and they can have their livelihoods. So I can say smart, targeted, determined government intervention in terms of subsidies is important. We have seen it happening with fertilizers already. Of course, you'll still have parties that are saying, it's not working properly, or maybe it shouldn't be there, or the right people are not benefiting. You will have issues with some of this until when they become, well-running machines. But that's important. Now, how else can that be done from a taxes and levies? I was speaking to the Director General for Tanzania Horticultural Authority, Taha, and she was mentioning, we were talking about, I think, avocados, and how there are, is it 18 or 26 different taxes or levies that somebody has to still deal with. But even that is a massive improvement probably from 15, 20 years ago, but it's still a significant number. So what can we do to reduce this? But in terms of productivity, now this is something that I raise quite a bit when I'm speaking to my counterparts. Tanzania is more than blessed. We're probably even over-blessed in terms of the agricultural commodities that we can produce, and we can produce to scale. So therefore, I have my piece of land. Again, I'll go back to this wheat example. How do you get me to farm wheat and not maybe maize or potatoes or whatever other else that I can most likely do on that same piece of land? And therefore, I believe to make sure that we can get some of this, because the bulk of our farm ownership, I can say, is still in the sort of 1 to 5 acre range. So still relatively small scale, and even up to 20 acres, you have most of the people under 20 acres. So how do you get me to deploy my 20 acres into something that we want to build in scale? And I do believe some kind of incentives need to come in to tell me, for example, that if you put maize, we will charge you 10 shillings per kilo, as an example. But if you put wheat, we'll charge you 2 shillings per kilo. Then I will do my math, and depending on productivity and prices, blah, 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 I can probably say, all right, I'll put it under wheat. And therefore, now you can start promoting the number of acres under wheat or whatever crop that you've designated. And I know now we have ACOT, the agricultural corridors of Tanzania. So have some crops we are targeting for massive and scaled up production in each of these corridors. Probably these are some of the solutions that can be deployed.
Absolutely. Now, you've talked about the blessings that Tanzania has in terms of food supply in abundance. And the government has a plan of making Tanzania the agricultural trade corridor of the region, but also the food basket of Africa. Now, in efforts to support those government endeavors, well, what exactly are you doing to ensure that Tanzania indeed does become the agricultural trade hub, but also the food basket for the continent?
So our area is still in access to finance. And I will tell you, once all the discussions are done with this is what we're going to do, these are the many acres we need, etc., somebody's going to say, where's the money going to come from?
Absolutely. Yeah.
And that's where PASS can come in ensuring, whether it's through our guarantee system, whether it's through the PASS leasing solutions, whether it's through other solutions that we're talking about in de-risking. Because when funders come in, you want to work with them to de-risk that sector as much as possible, whether it's weather index, which we have already piloted, whether index insurance, which we've already piloted and are looking at, whether it's an equity fund, an equity solution as well, which we're already looking to see if we can raise the funding to do something like that. So funding will be required at some point, even if it's not one node in the chain or one link in the chain, then in another, and that's where PASS would definitely come in.
So we're talking about 25 years. You've been at the helm of PASS close to 5 years, 4 years to be exact. What have been the biggest lessons in the over 2 decades of operation in the country? What have been the biggest lessons for PASS in the country that have shaped the way you operate?
So very, very, very interesting. When it comes to lending, there are some principles, I can say, or learnings that you see generally in lending, but probably in agriculture a bit more pronounced. So I'll give you an example where lending or solutions where the funding, the disbursement from the bank, say you are buying seeds from me, so you need 100 shillings loan from the bank for the seeds, then they disburse the 100 shillings to me. And I bring you the seeds rather than give you the 100 shillings, because you find a lot of people, once they get the 100 shillings, then they remember, I haven't paid my children's fees or what have you, and the money can disappear there. So some of these are very common, but in agriculture they're much more pronounced because you're dealing with seasonality.
Yes.
That if I say, okay, because somebody can take the chance, okay, I've got my 100 shillings, maybe I can go to Mererani and maybe get some Tanzanite and sell it, get my money and go and do put the money back into the intended purpose of the loan, which is agriculture. But by that time, maybe the rains have gone.
Yeah.
So the season is up. So it's some of those things are a little bit more pronounced within the agriculture space. The other key one that I have seen, and because we have grown with a lot of clients from when they were borrowing very I can say minimal amounts to compare to where they are now, is that a lot of the businesses we're dealing with are family-owned businesses. Are family-owned businesses. So, and they started as family-owned businesses when maybe they were borrowing 10 and 20 million shillings, and now they have grown, they need to borrow 5-6 billion shillings. And to get them through that journey from an organizational point of view, governance structure point of view, is extremely critical. You see a lot of large businesses still operating like that small, kiosk business that they're all wanting to do that. Whereas now they have a business that needs a different form of governance setup to operate. So this is one of the really, really key areas, because now as a lender, you could have been a very successful borrower at 30 million shillings and 50 million shillings and 100 million shillings and 200 million shillings. But now you're going to get 5 billion shillings, 6 billion shillings. So this is something that, and we know, I do believe a lot of countries, even the most developed, had to deal with this at some point. Yeah. So this is one of the things that I have seen, and therefore we need to have that active interaction with some of our beneficiaries, that hey, now you have to organize yourself, and they're difficult conversations Because what are you telling me, Mr. Johanne, you haven't run a business like I have, or you haven't done, what can you tell me about? I have run it for the last 15 years and you are coming to tell me I need to change. Why? So it's not an easy, I've been involved in some, and I've had a few where the clients has walked out. But it's the difficult, but it's a very important one. So this is one of the big things that I see. Companies are growing with the government putting in a lot of money into agriculture. It's going to support the growth. But the setup of some of our enterprises, especially these family-owned businesses that are riding that wave of growth, is a conversation that needs to be had.
Okay, so Tanzania is hitting below the weight as far as agricultural productivity or agriculture's contribution to the GDP is concerned. We have countries that are not blessed environmentally compared to us, but who are performing way, way better than us when it comes to agriculture. What do you think is that biggest challenge that needs immediate attention, both by the private sector, but also the government as well, in order to ensure that we optimally perform when it comes to agriculture output?
Yeah, this is a question. I heard my parents speaking about this when I was growing up as a young kid.
And you're hearing it,
and there's still an issue today.
Yeah.
So our issue is productivity. That is a massive issue. That, as I said, this is a conversation I've had since when I was a kid, of maybe Kenya producing X tons of maize per acre, in Tanzania doing maybe 20 or 30 or 40% of that. And this cuts across a lot of, and this links to the earlier question you asked in the example on wheat, because that affects a lot of things down the value chain, including the price the end user pays as well. And therefore, the government continues to do its bit. One, in terms of a big thing, in terms of irrigation. They've put in a lot of money in terms of promoting, setting up, revamping irrigation schemes. So at least to speak to the issue, or to start improving the possibilities of moving away from rain-fed agriculture. So water availability is definitely one. But technologies, now when I say technologies around seeds and use of fertilizers are very, very important to make sure that our farmers have these to use to improve the productivity. And again, when you speak about being overblessed, now you're out there in the village, you're farming your 1 acre, but you probably have 3 or 4 other acres that are just dormant. Yeah. So if you say, now I need to improve, I want to get more sacks of maize next, I can farm the 2nd acre. So the thinking, because of that land availability, I believe that the thinking of productivity doesn't come easy because I can have a 2nd acre and a 3rd acre. Some of those countries you will find are countries where they don't have that luxury of expanding their farm sizes. Yeah. And therefore it's really about improving and increasing and getting the maximum out of this very piece of land I own. So maybe aspects of that were driven by urgency from their point, which we are not there. But when I look at the issue of climate change and its impact and preserving the environment, we need to get into that kind of thinking very, very quickly of improving productivity, because then we can really, really access those opportunities that are massive out there. The second little bit to that discussion, because obviously you're talking about markets outside of Tanzania, there is the issue of standards. So it's standards all across the value chain, standards of the seeds, standard of the farming practices, standards of handling the harvested crops, etc., that are required by some of these international markets. So we have a bridge to cross in terms of those internationally acclaimed or accepted standards. The third area is now consistency. in terms of availability. So it's not only getting the right quality, but getting it each and every time, year in, year out, that the user, especially for the international markets that would of course be looking to access, as we want to feed the world, feed Africa, then somebody sitting wherever it is has to be sure that I can get 10 tons of this quality of rice from your honey every month or every year. So they can't afford that this year. Said, I decided to do potatoes this year, and therefore your 10 tons of rice are no longer available. So all these things play into making sure that Tanzania can do its justifiable part in meeting all these ambitions.
Okay, so Mr. Yohane, as we almost come to a conclusion of this interview, I want you to tell us, out of foresight, what would shape, or what are the opportunities that are going to shape Tanzania's agricultural value chain in the next decade?
So I think one, as everyone who comes late into adopting any technology, an advantage that they have is they don't have to go through the troubles, the pains that others had gone through. So we can adopt best in class immediately. And here I'm really talking about the very issues of just discussing around productivity, which then we have to link that productivity to environmental, to preserving our land. We have to link those two so that we're not consistently just mowing down forests to increase agricultural land if we can improve the productivity. So that is where Tanzania has got to go. Very, very interestingly, actually, when I was sitting in Nanenane, we had a forum with Kilimo Roundtable, and I came to learn, perhaps I should have known from a long time, that in the land designation, the criteria for land designation in Tanzania, there is nothing called agricultural land. We don't have agricultural land that has been said that this is agricultural land. On the livestock, they do, but not agricultural land. So you can see, therefore, how easy it is. Even if you look, most of your local governments, one of the biggest earners is plots for sale, and quite a number of them are probably going into agricultural, very arable land that they are now slicing into plots and selling for housing. So even something as simple as that, which in some other countries they have that. Look, if you're looking at housing, there are places where you can't do agriculture. That's where you can do housing, not in our arable land. Arable land is for agriculture. So even something like that, which as I said, I just learned in the last 2 weeks, that we do not have land in terms of our land categories in the country. We don't have that. So that in itself would be a huge start. Even if it's not obviously at a national level, at a regional level, the district level, we can say this land is for agriculture. That will be a start, because then everyone will know I cannot access that land to build a house, to build a car wash, to do what. If I want that land, I have to present a plan that what am I going to do in the agricultural space. So these are some of the things that have got to happen. We have to have solutions that are responding to the needs, and from where we sit, obviously de-risking is quite important. For the financing to come in, we have to work with the financiers on how we can de-risk. So moving away from rain-fed agriculture is obviously one. The government is spending, but there's still, I think, a lot of money that needs to be spent. Even what they've spent so far, the target is really to double the land under irrigation, but that will still be, I think, below 10% of available land for irrigation. So what solutions can you also bring in from a financing point of view to work with funders interested in developing that and adopt the right structures to make that happen? But also the aspect of improved seeds, availability of the improved seeds as well. Even as past, we haven't worked so much with seed multipliers. But as we devote ourselves to this commodity compact focus, then we're increasingly having those conversations and understanding from the seed multiplication point of view what is required to make sure that people get the right seeds. And which is a huge problem as well. Unfortunately, you have a lot of unscrupulous dealers who would brand their seed as, something really good, which is not. Farmers trust them, buy it, they go and plant, they never get the yields that they have. So, and of course, the government is involved in regulation and censorship for all these. So, all these are what Tanzania needs to do. And I'm already seeing aspects of this that the government, when you listen to the Ministry of Agriculture, when you read the Agriculture Master Plan, these are things that are recognized. These are things that there are plans to work on them. Now it's about execution.
Absolutely.
Yes, it's about execution. Absolutely. And we are all here. We have to work to execute. Our side, de-risking, access to finance, but making sure we execute. In terms of making sure that Tanzania readily walks into the next 25 years, for players like PAS and others in the industry, the importance of partnerships cannot be underrated because there's a lot within the sector. There isn't one entity that can come up with all the solutions. There are already people well vested in some of the areas. As I said, the area of advocacy as an example is one area that PAS could easily say, all right, let us look to do something in the advocacy space. But there are already people doing that and much more advanced. So we'd rather partner with them, feed into the forums that they already have, the visibility that they already have, to make sure we can push forward faster than us then saying, okay, we're going to start our little table here talking about advocacy. And therefore, what increasingly over the last 6 months, a lot of the conversations we've had, we've talked about the soybean as an example. We've talked to 6 or 7 different partners. There are 2 core ones that we'll be working with, but behind that there's probably another 4 or 5 that we need to bring in to make sure that can happen. And these are people who are already, and that's the critical point, people who are already doing something within that space that we need. So I cannot underline further the importance of partnerships in the journey that we have and the aspirations that the country has for the next 25 years in agriculture.
Oh, Mr. Yohane, we'll end on that note, because when it comes to agriculture, this might be a never-ending conversation. Yes, you were with me, Mpoki Thompson, for the Citizen Exclusive. We were with Mr. Yohane, the Managing Director of PAS Trust. Until next time, adios.